Okay, this week at the agenda saw a pundit defend controversial remarks, a lesson in teaching for the future, and mighty athletes dropping the ball. The agenda's Week in Review begins on this International Women's Day with a look at how women are transforming leadership. In boardrooms and political arenas across North America, women are increasingly at the helm. Is this gender shift transforming our notions of what makes a leader? Joining us now to discuss that, in Vancouver, British Columbia, Fiona McFarlane, Managing Partner of the British Columbia practice for Ernst & Young and the firm's Chief Inclusiveness Officer. And with us here in studio, Donna Dasco, founder and past National Chair of Equal Voice, an organization dedicated to electing more women in Canada. Malgosia Green, Chief Product Officer at Top Hat Monocle, an active learning platform that improves student engagement. Martha Fell, CEO at Women in Capital Markets, an organization that promotes the advancement of women in the capital markets industry. And John Duffy, founder and principal at Strategy Corp. And with that lengthy introduction for everybody, we thank you all for coming into TVO tonight. And Fiona, nice to have you on the line from the left coast. Let me start by just giving, you want to bring this up, this graphic? Look at this. This was not the case, John, when you and I were kids. Canada's women premiers. Eva Ariak in Nunavut, Christy Clark in British Columbia, Kathy Dunderdale in Newfoundland and Labrador, Pauline Marois in the province of Quebec, Alison Redford in Alberta, and of course, as of just a couple of months ago, Kathleen Wynne here in the province of Ontario. I think 5 of the 6 top jobs in the Ontario government today, Premier, Deputy Premier, Health Minister, Education Minister, Chairman of Cabinet, 5 of the 6 top jobs, so not finance, are held by women. Having said that, let me read this from Forbes.com, and then Martha, I'll let you have at this first. Here's this from Carol Himowitz. Female leaders have many of the same qualities as their male colleagues, but women are different in some particular ways that make them valuable additions to decision-making teams. For one thing, women are more motivated by the purpose or the meaning of their work than men, who focus more on compensation and their job titles. Women also tend to show more emotions at work and are more risk-averse, according to Joanna Barsh, a senior partner at McKinsey & Company, who leads the consulting firm's effort to develop women leaders. Now, as much as we hate stereotyping, does that sort of sound right?
First of all, there's a ton of research out there that has looked into, what are the qualities of a leader, particularly where the research shows why, when there's more than 3 women on a board or more than 30% women at a senior executive level, why those companies happen to also be more profitable. And they want to understand why. What is it? And I think there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can look at the individual leadership traits, but as we talked about before, it's not necessarily one leadership style that necessarily makes sense. And I think it is, unfortunately, something that can be easily stereotyped. And you can say women are better risk managers. You could look at the National Association of Research for Women in the States did a study many years ago that showed that women portfolio managers are more successful in general and produce higher returns than male portfolio managers.
Because they don't take crazy risks?
It's possible that that is the reason for it. There were the one-liners back in 2008. If it had been Lehman Sisters instead of Lehman Brothers, maybe we wouldn't. I won't finish that.
That's good. I haven't heard that before. That's good.
So I think that there's a lot of stereotyping that goes on around the issue. I think, though, if you look at the base case scenario, which is why are we doing any of this, the real business case behind diversity in the first place, you have to look at the fact that it's not necessarily the leadership of that team, it's the makeup of the team, and it's the fact that we need diverse teams. If this forum today were all white women of the same age, with the same educational background, with the same political spectrum or positioning on the spectrum, we might have a very different conversation than we are now, because we're representative of different ideas, different industries, different generations, different educational backgrounds, and different points of view. And I think that is really the whole point of diversity, is that you need to have all of us around decision making or in leadership circles representing diverse groups. You can't have them all homogenous. And that is what makes the issue, I think, more important when you look at the research around profitability and the measures that really stand out.
Fiona, that quote I just read, again, hating the stereotypes, but does it ring true?
It does. It does for me as well. The McKinsey research that's just been talked about identifies 9 leadership traits or behaviors that drive operational excellence and financial performance. And women tend to display 5 of them more frequently than men. And so I think there's just a tremendous opportunity for corporations, for business, and all areas where there needs to be leadership and diverse teams to have more balance. It's not about having all women or all men. It's about the balance, which produces better results.
Here's another quote, John. This is from Tim Harper, whom you and I both know from the Toronto Stars, followed politics for a long time, who says, "Women bring a more civil tone to politics. They are more likely to debate issues without the personal attacks. I will accept that. They will seek consensus. They are drawn to linear politics, not so much hierarchical politics, even though some recent studies have thrown that into question." All of these statements may have varying degrees of legitimacy, but overwhelmingly, the most successful female politicians I have encountered in the past 25 years found this success by playing hard and tough under traditional, in brackets, men's rules. You buying that?
I am and I am not. It's a little difficult to generalize. One of the things to keep an eye on here is whether we're talking about women politicians in government or in opposition. Opposition is a place that, unfortunately, I think prizes confrontation, and where you have to, shattering denunciations hurled across the aisle. You can be a wonderful consensus builder in opposition, and it won't matter because you won't be able to get into the discussion. I think what Donna described is really right, that these cabinets that have been carefully constructed to allow for diversity and to bring in different voices by relatively progressive male leaders over time, sometimes kicking and screaming, have proven to be good breeding grounds for this kind of leadership that's more diverse and brings us in. We haven't seen as many female politicians come in from opposition to lead their parties to victory. And really, Thatcher remains a bit of a standout in that regard, as someone who really went from all the way from the outside. I think there's another dimension here, though, that I really want to raise, which is what enables female leadership, because I think there was a powerful discriminatory barrier that actually had its roots in the world that we lived in that has now been largely rolled away, and that is what I would call the defense and security imperative. I was talking with my family, which are all women, my wife and my 2 daughters, the other day, and we talk about women's roles a fair bit, as one might. And we were talking about styles of leadership, and the subject of 20th century dictators came up. And I said to my family, I said, so...
This is what you talk about at the dinner table?
Yeah, sometimes. It's a funny bunch of people. But I said to my eldest daughter, because she was doing a project on this, I said, well, if you were to do a slogan for, someone like Stalin, how would you portray them? He didn't even have to run an election, but, Adolf Hitler did once or twice before he abolished democracy. And she said, oh, well, it would be bad dude. Now, nobody runs on bad dude anymore. And there's a reason for that. Not even people who are running for president and hand on the nuclear button run as the tough guy anymore. Because I think there's a view that we don't live in quite as dangerous a world as we did in the 1960s and 1970s and even the 1980s. I think because of that, it's become possible for other dimensions of leadership to be considered with a bit more respect, without that huge weight coming down of, yeah, but who's going to take that call at 3 a.m.? Now, you remember Mrs. Clinton did have one of her better ads was about who's going to take the call at 3 a.m.
With the dark trees outside, and
that's right.
She's in the bedroom in the fall.
Until somebody from the Clinton administration pointed out she never took any calls at 3 a.m. when she was the first lady, so come on.
And then the late night comedy people got to work on the whole marriage issue. But I think you no longer, we are not currently, at least in the period following 9/11 and the Middle Eastern wars, we're not currently in a moment where it seems to the broad mass of voters that we need a protector primarily. That removes a powerful discriminatory argument that says a protector equals male, and therefore you can't take a chance on a woman because she might not handle the call right when it comes in at 3 a.m. So I think we're in a particular moment, and a hopeful one, where I think we don't have that discriminatory lever working against women.
There are some topics that society has determined are so taboo they're almost impossible to discuss. University of Calgary professor Tom Flanagan found this out last week when he made some comments about child pornography in a Q&A with students in Lethbridge, Alberta. His comments went viral, and almost instantly he was dumped by his university, the CBC, and Alberta's Wild Rose Party, for whom he was a political advisor. You wrote an op-ed for the National Post on Monday in which you said that you felt by going to that class you'd walked into a trap. What did that mean?
Yeah, well, clearly there was an element of setup here to ask a question that's, completely unrelated to the topic of the evening, and to have somebody there to film it and then to put it up on YouTube afterwards. I think that was done in a calculated way. So in my mind, this was at least a semi-academic event where we could have question and answer and discussion. But for some people, I think it was a political event in which the point was to try and trap the speaker. So I walked into it, and obviously I made a big mistake by doing so.
In the video, you said, quote, "A lot of people on my side, on the conservative side of the spectrum, are on a kind of jihad against pornography and child pornography in particular." And that comment suggests that child porn is something that you think ought not to be in society's crosshairs. Is that what you believe?
No. Child pornography is a great evil, and we need to try and repress it and do something about it. But it's always a question of degree. And so the question that bothers me in our efforts to stigmatize and reduce the amount of child pornography, do we put in jail people whose only offense is to possess it or view it, people who have not produced it and sold it themselves, or people who have not abused children? I think it's dangerous to even possess it and view it because you're feeding the industry. So I think there is some harm there, but we don't punish every harm by putting people in jail. I think we have to realize how really quite remarkably heavy the penalties are in this area. Section 133 of the Criminal Code has mandatory jail time for even simple possession or accession of it, viewing it, in other words. There's lots of crimes in the Criminal Code in which judges have more flexibility than that. So the penalties are very severe. And so that's really the only question I'm raising. I'm not defending child porn. I'm not saying I approve of it or that it's okay. I'm saying, what is the appropriate penalty for people who may consume it without doing anything other than that?
You think the punishment does not fit the crime?
I think the punishment, I don't even know, to be honest. I was asking a question. I don't actually have a position on it. I was asking a question.
Well, here's what you said again in the National Post. You wrote, "I endorse jail sentences for the production and distribution of child pornography, but I wonder whether we need mandatory minimum jail time for possessing and accessing it if those are the only offenses. It is ultimately an empirical question whether we can adequately protect children without inflicting the additional harm of imprisonment upon people who are pornography voyeurs but not child molesters." And it sounds like you're sticking with your original position here, namely that there is room in Tom Flanagan's world for at least the consumption of child pornography. Do I have that right?
Not really. No, I'm not saying there's room for consumption. I think the consumption is potentially harmful because it feeds the industry, and it may well lead people in the direction of committing heinous offenses later on. I'm saying, what is the appropriate way of dealing with consumption if it hasn't yet reached that point of child molesting? I mean, to draw parallels with other things, we don't send everybody in areas of gambling or whatever, drugs to prison. There are therapeutic and counseling options, and I think that some of those might be more appropriate in this instance rather than an immediate mandatory jail sentence.
And let's just clarify, I mean, you said this on the tape, but for those who didn't see it, you don't look at this stuff. You have no particular interest in this stuff. This is, in some respects, an academic or public policy discussion for you. But let me put another quote here from your National Post piece, which is, "Jail is a grim necessity for criminals who seriously harm the person and property of other people. But should we fill our prisons with people whose problems can be dealt with in other ways? In the pursuit of justice, we shouldn't forget about mercy for people whose offenses lie at lower levels of harm to others." And again, despite everything, it sounds as if you are calling for mercy for people whose sexual preferences create a market for sexual child abuse, to which some people will say, this guy said it, and he's still saying it, and he doesn't get that he's kind of stepped over a line here. Yes or no?
I don't think I've stepped over any line when I've said that we should treat with mercy people who haven't inflicted any damage on other people. I doubt that these people asked for their sexual preferences. I suspect, at least modern science suggests, that there's probably a hereditary component to this that we don't fully understand. But we certainly don't want them harming other people, and we don't want a pornography industry, and we want to dampen that down. But sending a person of this type into jail where he's going to be persecuted probably by other prisoners for his crime, where we know that jails don't really have the counseling and therapeutic options, wouldn't it be better to consider counseling and therapy for somebody like this as a more effective way of dampening down the demand for pornography? It's not a matter of encouraging, it's a matter of what is the most effective way to dampen down this great evil.
You've interviewed lots of athletes in your day. Why do we worship these people?
I think in large part we worship them because they tap into childhood goals and aspirations, childhood dreams. And as a result, these things, these dream lives that we imagine for ourselves, we tend to, when we see someone perform well on the field, we tend to extrapolate that out and fill in the blanks in their personality and imagine that if they're as good as we would have liked to have imagined ourselves being on the field, that they'd be good. They're literally superheroes in every aspect of their lives. It's not realistic, but that's what we bring to the table.
Cahal, even as an ink-stained wretch, would you acknowledge at some point along the way, you've probably found yourself admiring somebody a little too much for what they can do on the ice, on the pitch, on the field, etc.?
Well, I think that you draw that distinction, and that's it. It is a dream factory, but you do not make moral judgments on them based on what they can do on the field. That's the writer. That's the writer who's with them all the time and perhaps sees a little bit of the off-the-record stuff, but because all we see them in is this perfect stage, right? We see them only on television. We see them only framed in the most heroic, ideal way. We tend to extrapolate that out, as Steve said, and think of them in that perfect milieu.
Casey, is it wrong for us to worship these people?
It's not necessarily healthy, but it's just part of the celebrity culture in today's society, I think. They really are superhuman. Physically, it's gotten to the point where athletes are superhuman. They do things we could never dream of doing, and it goes back to what Steve said. We all played some sort of sport when we were younger, and it's the ideal lifestyle. They're getting paid to play a game. And at this point, they're now physical specimens that we could never do physically what they do.
That's actually, Mike, if you think about it, 50 years ago or 75 years ago, we looked more like them. You can't say that anymore, can you? They really are different.
Yeah, no, yeah. None of us look like LeBron James, right? And you look what he's doing. Right. And it's a little bit sad, too, because you see guys that don't look like us, whether it's a LeBron James or a Usain Bolt, and it's riddled with, geez, are they on the juice? Is there some sort of performance enhancing going on there? So in a way, the dreams of the superhero has been taken away in this drug-tarnished era. And the other thing, too, just in terms of the values of sport, I think one of the things is we want to think about, just because Tiger Woods is a phenomenal golfer doesn't necessarily mean he's a phenomenal person.
But we equate the two. Let's put it this way. On first reflection, until we're given evidence not to, we tend to do that, don't you think?
Yes, I think we do, and we continue to make that mistake, right? Because there's the aspirational and there's the dream element associated with it. And it's part of all of us growing up and coming of age in a technological world where we're going to be a little bit more grounded in reality as we learn more truths as we go along.
You want to pick up on that notion of good athlete versus good sport?
Well, I think you really put your finger on it when you said that we assume the perfection until proven otherwise. And whenever that happens, you see the activation of something that's deeply unconscious and also generally extremely useful. So I think what happens with our confusion with regards to sports heroes is that there's something about playing a game properly that actually really is worthy of hero worship. But playing a game properly, like everyone tells their 10-year-old, is not about winning. It's about playing in a manner, and it's a technical distinction. If you're a good sport, you play games in such a way that people invite you to play more games in the future.
With honor.
Well, that actually constitutes a kind of meta victory. You know, because in life, a good sport is someone who goes from game to game. And there's games of all different types and is popular and does extremely well at all of them. And when you tell your child, be a good sport, it's not about winning, what you mean is never sacrifice your opportunity to play multiple games to the victory of any one game. And when we see someone play a game really well, we do unconsciously assume that they're not good athletes, they're good sports, and that's what makes them heroes. And then we have this disproved.
I think that's a really good point, but I think that for us, the true ideal is the idea of somebody that can blend those two things together. The idea that you can be truly elite and outstanding and be a good sport at the same
Fair
time.
enough.
And I think that a lot of times it says more about what we value as people than the athletes themselves, that we tend to come at these things and fill in those blanks with the best possible interpretation of who they are. And my favorite example is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan has legions of fans, and the truth is the more you know about Michael Jordan, the more you know that he's really not a good sport at all. And there are a lot of people who love Michael Jordan so much they resist that storyline at all costs. They don't want to hear it. And I think that says more about us and what we're trying to get out of sports than it does about the athletes themselves.
Maybe you can't win 6 championships if you're a good sport.
Well, I would hate to think that that's true, and I think a lot of people would hate to think that that's true. We want to believe that it's possible.
I think to compete at that very highest level, you need to have a sense of entitlement. You can't go into the French Open and think, geez, I hope I do pretty well and make it to the semifinals. I'm going to walk out of there with that trophy, right? And these guys and gals, they have their elbows up, and there's a sense of entitlement and expectation. And you can only get there.
That's kind of how we're warping things, too, I think, with regards to the hero worship, is that we put such incredibly high level of tangible reward on specific victories that it's really easy for the sportsmanship element to be completely subsumed.
There's all sorts of different trouble that athletes can get into. For Tiger, it was sex. For Michael Vick, it was dogs. For Mike Tyson, it was sex. You know, for Lance Armstrong, it was lying and being a bully and all of that other stuff. And tell us why it is that when these guys fail, it is not just sort of a little failure. It is a spectacular meltdown in kind of everything that they previously represented.
Well, I think it's really important. What you said at the top there is an important distinction to draw here. We're actually talking about a huge range here, from cheating at your sport to infidelity to doing drugs to murder, in the case of Oscar Pistorius. So it's kind of dangerous to generalize about anything where the gap is that huge, I would argue. But that being said, it gets back to the point that we were just talking about you think about these guys in their childhood, okay? From the time they hit puberty, they're identified as an elite athlete. You get into high school and you are encouraged to focus on your sport to the exclusion of everything else. Then you get to college.
Not just an elite athlete, an elite person.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. But in athletics, it's particularly, being on the honor roll doesn't quite come with the same level.
But they're told that they're just
a
wonderful person, not just athletes.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And so then you get to college and you're recruited heavily and you're babied all the way through college, and then you sign your first contract and get a signing bonus. And it gets back to that point of spending your entire life with people kissing your backside. I think it has a profoundly negative impact on people. A lot of those regular knocks that we hit when we're, in high school or in our early 20s, things like hearing the word no, hearing you've got to wait your turn, hearing sorry you didn't get the job. These are all experiences that are formative for people and positive for people. Athletes, sometimes they get to very, very deep in their life before they hit that wall at all. And it can corrupt you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario, as we continue our Learning 2030 series. That's TVO's year-long special look at how technology is transforming how we learn, what we learn, and where we learn it. And in the spirit of think globally but act locally, we have come to Peterborough to try to understand how the globalizing reach of digital technology affects individual teachers working in their particular classrooms. And we are here in this it's called the Great Hall, and it is a great hall, a beautiful, beautiful room here at Trent University. We've been here all weekend long experiencing all that this university and the city of Peterborough have to offer. Let's start with this, Michael Fulham. We know that we have seen independent studies that suggest that Ontario has one of, if not the best, school system in the English-speaking world. And I wonder, if that's the case, why are you talking about radical changes that you think we need?
Well, two reasons. One is, as good as it is, it's not that great, actually, when you look closely at it. 82% high school graduation, there's a big gap there. Subgroups, Aboriginal students doing poorly. Literacy, 70% at the high measure. Take the EQAO, our assessment scores. The highest level of performance is where really the critical skills are, is level 4. The percentage of students achieving level 4 all through this last decade is stuck at 13%. So if you put your critical hat on, it's not all that great. Similarly, inside the system, on the same point, students are not all engaged. There's a degree of boredom in there that increases as you go up the grade levels. So that's one reason. The other reason is if you stand still, you go backwards. It's hard to do, but when you look at the world, these other countries that we're interacting with in Finland and Singapore, England these days, trying to get back on the road to development, there's tremendous global development going on in education. And if we don't act, we'll be left behind.
You teach teachers how to teach. And I'm wondering how important you think, same question I asked Michael Fullen, how important is it that they be tech savvy?
I have to be honest, I have a bit of an issue with the term tech savvy.
What would you prefer?
I think tech-enabled teachers. Tech savvy means you know how to use your phone, you know how to use your tablet, but do you know how to use it within the classroom to support student learning? Those are two very different things. I know how to read. Does that mean I know how to teach people how to read? So I think it's very important to understand that difference. Okay. And I think that it's not just about the technology. When we look at the competencies or the 6 C's that Dr. Fullen was talking about, some of those are related to technology, but very often we don't need technology to support collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. And so very often people get too bogged down in that, oh, we need the technology to drive these competencies, when really it's technology enables us to use those in more engaging ways. And I think that's what we really need to think about. So for our new teachers, our teacher candidates that I work with on a daily basis, it's about how do I use these technologies, combine that with my pedagogical knowledge, my content knowledge, my knowledge about my students, and create engaging learning experiences for our students.
What percentage of the teachers in the classroom today have the performance skills or don't, are technology enabling or aren't? What's the number?
Well, I would tell you in my former district, at the Eastern Township School Board in the province of Quebec, it's at 98%, since we've had a one-to-one deployment since 2003, and the only district in Canada. In the rest of Canada, I would suggest it's under 25%. With respect to the technological skills to be able to pull it off, what we're expecting them to do. And we did this in a research just recently called Teaching the Way You Aspire to Teach, where we surveyed teachers and met with teachers across Canada. And it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to hear these teachers articulate the fact that they wanted to use the technology, but were being prevented to from the filters, the policies, the constraints that really just aren't enabling this. We have to inject a lot of trust into this system now, because I think the more we trust our educators, the better things will become. But we've got to, that leap of faith has to happen.
What do we say, Kathy, to trustees or principals or whomever who say, if you let kids have these devices in the classroom, they're just going to be texting each other the whole time, and it'll be a waste of time to have it in there?
There are always attitudes of resistance to technology, and no matter where you are. And I think one of the things we really want to pay attention to is the how factor versus the wow factor. So when we get new technology in the room and it's a novelty, we think, wow, this will really engage kids, it will make it fun for them. And I'm cautious about that because I think it has a short lifespan. I think we really need to be thinking about how we use that technology to engage learners, how we're using the technology to help learners become producers of knowledge as opposed to consumers of knowledge. And this is a big issue around new technologies where I might just want to be entertained. And we really need to think about how we support teachers in developing the skills to be those change agents that we're hoping they will be, and taking advantage of the technologies to do so.
Let me come on over here and talk to Courage Hushman, who is a grade 12 student at Earl Hague High School. With the Toronto District School Board, you're also what's called a student trustee. So you're on the school board.
Right, yeah.
You don't vote, but you're on the board.
I don't. We don't have a binding vote, though our vote certainly affects what the other trustees say and do.
Really?
Oh, you would hope so, right?
Well, okay, those are two different things, but okay. I want to get a sense. You're in the last year of high school, right?
Right.
So I want to get a sense over your number of years in the public school. Have you been in the public school system all the way through?
Yes.
How well do you feel that this public school system has prepared you for whatever's going to come next?
I think if the future were to be, if the future consisted of, a lifelong membership in the National Regurgitation Academy, then I would be greatly prepared. Unfortunately, I think it's quite frankly the opposite. We live in a world where we have to be sparked by curiosity. It's uncertainty that drives us. It's uncertainty that makes us who we are and what we do. And quite frankly, I do not think that currently, though we have a great education system in Ontario, it's the wrong system.
What does that mean?
Well, I think technology integration has to be a lot more prevalent. And I don't use that term loosely because, everyone thinks, let's integrate technology. One teacher puts up a website and, you think that the job's done. But that's not the case, right? It's utilizing Facebook, let's say. Students are on Facebook, 25 hours out of the 24 hours in a day, and yet we haven't utilized that in terms of creating a group, a classroom group, where you can, use that.
But you know why, right? You know the fear. The fear is that I guess all your teachers and principals and so on think that you're just messing around on Facebook rather than using these digital tools to enhance your education. What's the reality?
The reality is we cannot bring about change through being irrelevant. If you want to bring about change, it's never done so through being irrelevant. All the change, if you want to change the system, you have to be relevant in doing so.
And that's the Agenda's Week in Review. You can see all of those programs in their entirety on our website, theagenda.tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, and on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.